Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another one of our Tapping In webinars. Today it's part 3 out of 6. Thank you very much for joining me, and I hope everybody is well. So, let's get into it. "30-Foot Drop acknowledges the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to them and their cultures, and to their elders, both past and present. Must always remember that under the tarmac, concrete, asphalt, oil spills, this land is, was and always will be traditional Aboriginal land." We would also like to acknowledge the Department of Communities, Disability Services for funding this and many other initiatives. Without their support, so many projects such as Two Wise Monkeys would never actually see the light of day, and as a community we'd be so much poorer for it. This workshop is part of the Realities and Advantages of Access and Inclusion Grant, awarded to 30-Foot Drop as part of the Information Linkages and Capacity Building Grants of 2018 to 2019. Alright, a little bit of housekeeping before we start looking at the market of people with impairment and why it's worth your investment. So first up, unfortunately we don't actually have the resources to monitor all of our live streams during the session. So if you want to ask any questions or interact live with myself, please head to www.30footdrop.com.au/live. We'll be covering a lot of information in a short amount of time, okay? So we recommend that attendees and anybody watching take actions to minimise distractions. If you want to recommend this to anybody else, please, I encourage you to. And if you get a chance and you've enjoyed today, then please jump onto social media, give us a rating and a review. It really helps to get the word out there about this and the many other projects that 30-Foot Dropper is involved with. We'll also be recording this session. So if you want to go back and review anything that we said, or if you unfortunately cannot make the time slots that we are actually doing the live webinars, you'll be able to find them on our YouTube channel. We will be referencing a lot of research and other sources today during this webinar. Everything that we've referenced can be found on the 30-Foot Drop Digital Resource Library. Okay, found it once again, www.30footdrop.com.au. There is a lot of good information on there. There is also stuff that we're not going to cover today. It is all worth a look. And if there's any questions that you have about today, please either jump on the live chat and ask me, or send me an email or get in touch with us via social media. We're always happy to help. At the end of the webinar today, we also have a short survey for attendees to complete. Please take the time to fill this in, as it really helps us out. Okay, that's found on the live page of the 30-Foot Drop website. Okay, and down the bottom there are 6 buttons, and this is webinar number 3, the post survey from that. It's just 6 short questions. Will take you 30 seconds to fill out, but helps us immensely. Thank you. So allow me to introduce myself properly for those who have not had the pleasure of attending one of the webinars or many workshops that I've run. I'm Ben Aldridge. I am the Managing Director of 30-Foot Drop. I am see no evil. I am see no evil because I'm a C5 quadriplegic. Okay, I broke my neck about 13 years ago now, and since then life has changed immensely. Now it's obvious that I have a disability or impairment because when you get around with wheels glued to your butt, or you got hands that are permanently in sort of dog paws, it becomes very obvious. Now, hopefully by the end of today, with the information that I impart to you, you will see that there is no evil about disability and impairment. My co-presenter Lisa, who also presents some of these webinars, is hear no evil. I'll leave her story up to her because she is amazing at telling it, but the moral of her story is that not all disabilities are visible. And by the time that you've spent a bit of time interacting with her, you'll come to realise that you will hear no evil about disability impairment. But wait, isn't there actually supposed to be 3 wise monkeys, not 2 wise monkeys? Who do you think is going to be the third? Well, the answer's simple. It's you. after seeing our webinars and absorbing the information that we have to do, our aim is that you will leave these information sessions speaking no evil about disability impairment, because you'll realise that regardless of what difficulties we all may face, we're all human, we're all customers, we're all a market. So, how are we going to get you started on the path of the wise monkey? Well, there is a lot to get through about people with impairment and their potential impact upon your business. So first, we're actually going to examine the size of this market segment, okay? And explaining why they are a viable potential customer base that you should be paying attention to. We will also examine the potential impacts, both positive and negative, that this market can have on your business. We will then wrap up with an open forum, and during that time you can ask any questions that you have, any at all. Okay? How are we going to follow this? Or how are we going to get through all this? Look, our teaching method is open, honest conversations. You'll notice that there is very little written content on our slides. Okay? That is because you're here to interact with us. Okay? This is a live interactive webinar. Now, in order to aid that, I once again really encourage you guys to go to www.30footdrop.com.au/live. There you'll find the chat box, okay? That is the only one that we can monitor with the resources we have, unfortunately, but it is a brilliant way of interacting with us and asking us questions as we go. So, to reduce any confusion and ensure understanding, I want to review some terminology that I'll be using during this session. The first one is the difference between disability and impairment. An impairment is an injury, illness, or congenital condition that causes or is likely to cause a loss or difference of physiological or psychological function. To simplify it, okay, an impairment is pretty much your medical diagnosis. Okay, so my impairment is that I'm a C5 quadriplegic with post-traumatic stress disorder in remission. That is my impairment. A disability, on the other hand, is the loss or limitation of opportunities to take part in society on an equal level with others. This is often due to societal and environmental barriers. It is, as the word implies, something that makes you unable or disables you from being able to access or participate in something. Okay? Often those two words get used jointly or flipped back and forth. Okay? But the disability is always referring to the barrier. It's a very important distinction. The second terminology that I want to review is the difference between access and inclusion. Access, okay, refers to the removal or reduction of barriers, both physical and attitudinal, to participation in the activities and functions of a community. At its core, access focuses a lot on the physical world around us and is easily assessed with a checklist. And as a result, when businesses and governments talk about access and inclusion, access is the one that they concentrate on because it is the easiest one for them to assess. It is the easiest one to figure out what it is you can do. Okay? It's really easy. And unfortunately, inclusion often gets forgotten as a result because everybody is so focusing on access. But there's a second part, okay? The inclusion. So inclusion is more a psychological state of being and is the process whereby every person, irrespective of age, disability, gender, religion, sexual preference, or nationality, who wishes to can participate fully in all aspects of an activity or service in the same way as any other member of the community. Inclusion is a state of being. When you feel included, you know that your opinions are listened to, that your thoughts are worthy, that you're not being ignored, because of something you have no control over. That's what inclusion is. And like I said, a lot of people often forget about the inclusion aspect of it, but it is really important. There's no point in somebody like myself being able to, okay, we'll use the example of a shire council. There is no point in a shire council having its forums accessible if when I turn up I get completely ignored. If when I turn up nobody will hear me out. Inclusion is really important. So hopefully that's all made sense. If not, and you have any questions, once again, head to www.30foot.com.au/live and jump in the chat box there, okay? And I will answer any of the questions that you have. But without further ado, let's dive into the hidden market segment. Now, before I start focusing on people with impairment and the market segment they are, I would actually like to have a look back in time a little bit, okay? At an example that a lot of people don't realise is out there when it comes to potential market segments. So, here's a great business idea, right? Let's ignore a potential market. That's what many sports and athletics related businesses did until they realised in the mid-90s that they'd been passing on a gold mine, absolute gold mine. What was this market? Women. You know, that half of the population that obviously some thought should just play with Barbie dolls and prams, okay? You see, the 90s were a turning point for this market because NBC's 1996 Summer Olympic Games coverage targeted women and the sports that they're playing in a lot more, okay? As a result, female-orientated sports leagues such as soccer and basketball boomed, which suddenly meant that there was a demand for apparel and equipment lines. And of course, the sports-related advertisements emerged from that as well. I mean, imagine that. Women would actually be interested in doing the same things as other human beings, such as sports. The question I've got for you is, could many businesses once again be ignoring and missing other potential markets? Consider, for example, a market that has clear, persistent needs that are not being adequately fulfilled. This population, it spans the world, okay? Is growing and includes very motivated customers. Now, since this population is currently being underserved and misunderstood by so many businesses, many customers would be very grateful and loyal as a result to those businesses that take the first step in actually targeting this market. This is a population that has an estimated disposable income Australia-wide of $54 million a year and growing rapidly. On top of that, consider how margins in business are always getting tighter, and that finding a new and neglected population can really help to boost your business's margins. Okay, who is this population? People with impairment. Okay? We are currently a market that is being underserved, and we'll be going through some of the research that actually backs that up. And the thing is that the disposable income of this market is growing rapidly. The introduction of the NDIS has actually meant that, unlike under previous systems, the people who are on the NDIS are not having to spend a large chunk of their pensions or their income on required medical and impairment-related devices. They're not having to self-fund all of these things. So, whilst they may not be actually earning more, their disposable income is actually going up. And that's a distinction that not a lot of businesses really think about. So, how big a market share do you think that people with impairment actually represent? Let's have a look at some of these numbers, okay? So, here's the population. Take my word for it, there's 100 figures there. I'm pretty sure. Every time I count them, I seem to end up with a number between 98 and 102. So I'm pretty sure there's 100 there, hopefully. But that's beside the point, okay? Now, as a basic calculation, there are approximately 5% of the Australian population who are living with severe or profound impairment, okay? These are people who require assistance or have difficulty with mobility, communication, or self-care. Okay? These are people like me, right? The number of 20% when it comes to looking with people with impairment, or as government likes to call them, people with disability, okay, gets thrown around a lot. Now, a lot of these people can access goods and services normally. This 5%, they can't. Okay, often we require certain parameters in order to access a business's goods and services. Okay, but here's the thing, right? On top of that 5%, there are also 4%, okay, of the population in Australia who are the unpaid primary carers of people with an impairment. Okay, suddenly you've got a total of 9% of the population that you're looking at who are going to need accessible goods and services, who are going to need to have those parameters. 9%. It's actually quite a large market. And on top of that, this doesn't even take into account those that accompany these people, friends, family, colleagues, all of these things, okay? You look at an average party size, average party size in the southwest of Western Australia relating to tourism and visitors down here is 2.14. Average party size. Okay? Oh, geez, suddenly that's over 18% of the population who are looking for accessible goods and services. That's pretty big. That's a pretty big market share. That's a pretty big market size, especially, you know, when you actually think about it. Now, hopefully that's given you a bit of an idea, okay, in the basic rundown of how big a market it is. But you also may ask that if it is such a big market share, then surely it's already being served. Who's going to miss out on such a big market segment, okay? Aren't there items, services, events such as Paralympic Games every 4 years for those with an impairment or disability? Well, yeah, there are some. There are some for sure. But that's a bit like saying to women who wanted to play sports in the 70s, yeah, but don't you have hopscotch? Okay. While some businesses do seem to understand this market, many don't. So let's have a look at some of the research that's been done around this and whether this market segment is actually being served. Deloitte and the Australian Human Rights Commission released a report in February 2017. Okay? It is titled Missing Out, the Business Case for Customer Diversity. And in it, they present their research findings about the missed opportunities that occur when businesses don't extend the values of fairness, equality and respect to a diverse customer base. Okay? This research covered the diversity areas of gender equality, marriage equality, people with impairments, age, cultural diversity, and practicing a noticeable faith. It is really well worth reading if you get the chance, okay? You will find it in our digital resource library. The findings in there absolutely shocked me, okay? But for today, let's focus on the results that deal with impairment and if businesses are meeting the needs of this market. So, here's one of the findings that I had, okay? As a customer, over the last 12 months, I have often found that organisations do not provide the products and services I need. Now, organisations not providing products and services that you need is a problem that all of us face at some point or another, okay? And so for people who don't have an impairment, okay, you're looking at about 27%. But this jumps up to 35% when you start to look at people with impairment. And on top of that, it's often found. Not once, often found. Here's the next finding. As a customer, over the last 12 months, I have usually engaged with organisations with a fear of rejection or embarrassment because of a personal characteristic. Over a quarter of the respondents with an impairment say that they usually have a fear of rejection or embarrassment. Okay? That is a lot of scared customers. Okay? And you know what? Do you think scared customers spend well? They don't. As a customer, over the last 12 months, I was often treated less favourably than other customers based upon a particular characteristic. Okay, this jumps from 1 in 4 for those that don't have an impairment to over 1 in 3, almost 2 in 5. Okay, that's huge. Similar to the one before, if you feel like you're not getting treated favourably, are you going to spend money there? No, you're not. You're not going to spend money where you get treated like crap. And this one shocked me the most. I knew it was an issue, but I didn't realise it was this bad. Okay? As a customer over the last 12 months, I have experienced discrimination by 1 or more organisations. 1 or more. Okay? Almost 30% of people, okay, with an impairment feel that they're getting discriminated against by 1 or more. That's a lot. It's huge numbers. Once again, you're not going to spend money there, are you? So, hopefully these stats have given you a little bit of an idea, okay, that there is definitely a market that is not having their needs met. If the needs were being met, there would not be this discrepancy between the people without the impairment and the people with the impairment. Okay, it just wouldn't be there. So the needs are obviously not getting met. Now, before I go any further in it, I want to actually have a talk to you guys about who these market share are. Okay. I want to take it away from being a theoretical market segment to making it so that you can understand who we are, okay? People with impairment, people like me, okay? We're people, we're humans, we're part of your community, okay? Like everybody, okay? We all have passions, loves, okay? We have things that we enjoy doing, we have hobbies. We purchase consumer goods like food, clothing, cars. We go out to movies, we go out for dinner, for holidays, okay? We are people, we run our businesses, we have a wide range of talents, we have a wide range of abilities, okay? Yet for some reason, businesses like to treat us like we are none of those things, okay? But the truth is that we are an active part, an active contributors to the community and the economy. And we represent a market share or market segment to businesses and organisations. Now, because we're a market segment, we are also able to impact your organisations. How we impact your organisation is up to you. Let's have a look at some of these potential impacts. When it comes to minorities, like people with impairment, okay, people can often say it's only a minority, there isn't enough of them to make a difference. Well, as we discussed earlier, we can safely say, okay, that it's at least 9% of the population. Then once you add the average party size coming in as well, it's more. So, we're not really a small minority Okay, we're quite a sizable minority. And also on top of that, what research has actually found is that people with impairment are actually a very decisive and influential minority. Okay, let's have a look at the research for this. So this is going back again to the same report, the missing out report. Okay, so as a customer over the last 12 months, I have ceased completion of a transaction because I felt like I was not being treated fairly. Okay, this jumps from 18% of with the general population, it jumps up to 29%. Okay, the thing is that purchasing power is in the hands of the customers, and when people don't get what they want, either in terms of product or service, they cease the transaction. Ceasing a transaction is a loss. Okay, in order to get a customer to the point where they're considering doing a transaction, as a business, you have already invested in that customer, whether it be through marketing, whether it be through the physical product itself, a place to display it, whether you have a shop front or a website. All of these things cost money. All of it is an investment. Okay, when the customer ceases the transaction, they've already used your investment, but you haven't gotten anything in return. Making it less likely for a customer to cease that transaction will always be the best option. As a customer, in the last 12 months, I ceased completion of a transaction because I felt like I was not being treated with respect. So the first one was about being treated fairly. Okay? The second one is about being treated with respect. And once again, it jumps right up. Okay? If you don't treat this segment with fairness and respect, they are more likely to walk away. Because if I look at it from a personal point of view, I've got enough stuff to deal with in my life without having to put up with your attitude, without having to be put up with being treated as subhuman. But more than just walking away from a salesperson or from a sale or a transaction, people with impairment are actually twice as likely as the rest of the population to dissuade people or to dissuade others using the product or service. Twice as likely. Okay, we are an influential minority. Okay, look at this. In the last 12 months, I've dissuaded others from using a product or service based upon an organisation's negative reputation in relation to impairment. Okay, twice as likely. Basically, if your business is not already accessible and inclusive, there's a good chance that it's already being negatively impacted by this. There is a good chance that people like myself are dissuading others from using your service. Now, I've been asked in the past, right, if supporting diversity in business can have an adverse effect. Okay, can it drive my current customers away? The argument's often, I've got a great customer base as it is. If I change it and I bring those people in, then I'll drive them away. The missing out report found that only 13%, okay, of people are negatively affected by a business's diversity reputation. Okay, 13% are negatively affected. On the other side of the coin, 58% are positively affected. Okay, and 30% just couldn't care. Now, unfortunately, this result from the report isn't impairment specific, okay? But it takes into account the entire spectrum of the report. So it has some very divisive diversity areas, okay? Gender and marriage equality, older people, cultural diversity, practicing a noticeable faith. These can be very divisive things in our society. And yet, 13%, well, it says 12% up there because of rounding, but I think you get the idea. Yes, you may lose some customers, but you will gain so much more. So to finish this section off, I want to read you a really relevant key finding from this report. Okay. Customers with an impairment are 3 times more likely to avoid an organisation and twice as likely to dissuade others because of an organisation's negative diversity reputation. As I said, if your business or organisation is not already inclusive and accessible, there is a good chance that you are already dealing with this negative impact. Okay? Now, that's the possible negative impact, or the probable negative impact, okay, if you don't take action. Now, if you do take action, what's some of the positive impacts that can happen? Well, ethical consumerism is a big one. And when I say the positive impacts, I'm not talking just financially, okay? Like I said, there is a market out there with a disposable income which is quite high and growing that you can tap into, okay? Ethical consumerism, this is a ripple effect. And it's one that not a lot of people in the smaller business world think about, but is a big driver in a lot of big business, okay? So ethical consumerism is a form of political activism based upon the idea that the purchasers in the market consume not only the goods, but also implicitly embrace the process used to produce them, okay? By choosing certain products over others, or even whether to purchase them at all, consumers can embrace or reject particular environmental and labour practices and make other value claims based upon the ethical values that they hold. Ethical consumerism is about appealing to your customers' values, okay? Is being able to make it a value add to the customer and therefore more likely to transact with you because it aligns in their beliefs. Exercising choice in this way creates incentives for producers to make production practice conform to consumer values. Okay? Successful campaigns waged by ethical consumer movements are things like dolphin-free tuna, foods that are free from GMOs, sweatshop-free clothing, fair trade coffee, cosmetic products free from animal testing, and conflict-free diamonds. Okay? You stop and think about it. There is a lot of ethical consumerist products out there that we buy and purchase day after day, even though they may be slightly more expensive, because they align with our values. So how can we apply this to impairment? Well, the best example at the moment is actually the Quiet Hour program. Okay? It's being piloted by Coles and been adopted by Woolworths. Now, I like to look at big business when it comes to looking for business ideas. Okay? Big businesses have shareholders, and the people who make the decisions are beholden to the shareholders. So therefore, they are not going to trial something which is going to make a loss. And on top of that, they're not going to continue doing something that will lose them money in the long run. So, for those that haven't actually heard about the Quiet Hour program, I'll explain. Some impairments make people hyper aware of their surroundings, okay? Post-traumatic stress, when I get triggered, is a perfect example of that. And there are many, many others. And you become hyper aware, and it makes activities such as going to the supermarket very challenging and stressful, okay? What Coles and Woolworths has done is that every Tuesday between 10:30 and 11:30, they desensitize their stores. They do things like dim the store lighting by 50%, turn the radio and music off, the register and scanner volumes are reduced to their lowest levels, trolley collection is stopped, and roll cages are removed from the shop floor. PA announcements are also stopped, except in the case of emergency. Free fruit is offered at customer service, and additional team members are available to support customers. Okay? This is an amazing initiative. It really is. It certainly means that people who have hyper-awareness issues can actually attend the supermarket and not have it wipe them out. If I go to a place that's really crowded, loud, noisy, and stuff like that, if I've been triggered, it is exhausting. Okay, I will go and do the shopping, and that'll be me wiped out for the rest of the day if I even manage to get the shopping finished. Okay, it is an amazing, amazing initiative, but it has also increased the ethical reputation of both businesses. Okay, if you search the internet about it, it was published all over Australia when it was first brought in. Okay, and how do you think that has actually affected consumers? Okay, by running something that makes more of the community able to attend their shops. Not only are they, making more sales of those who attend that each week, but also they're winning over champions for that particular business. And on top of that, the ethical consumerism surrounding it. Wow, Coles and Woolworths are doing the right thing. They're really helping out. They're great. Well, I might go to there instead of the local IGA because, they're doing the right thing. They're doing something that conforms with my values. So that's how it can apply to impairment. Okay? So that's the information that I have today in regards to the untapped market and looking at how big it is. We're going to do a bit of a Q&A time now. And if you have any questions, I really encourage you to head on over to www.30footdrop.com.au/live and use the chat box there. As I explained earlier in this webinar, we don't have the resources to actually monitor all of the streams that we're doing. So if you want a live response, that is the best place for you to go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the mic off for about 5 minutes and give people a chance to send in any questions that they have. After that time, I'm going to jump back on and we will go through and I'll answer those questions for you. And on top of that, the questions don't actually need to be related to today's topic. Okay? Open, honest conversations is what we are all about. If you have any questions, go for it. Talk to you in about 5. All right, and we're back. I have received one very insightful question that I've actually had to give a little bit of thought whilst I'm sitting here. So the question is, at what point in your journey did you feel not included? Did you notice these barriers right away? Are they that obvious to people with impairment? It's a really interesting question because I'm trying to sort of pinpoint where I came across it. So after my accident, I took the lack of being able to access and the lack of being able to be included as par for the course for, I have a disability now. I've always treated people that way, so I probably should get treated that way myself. And it wasn't until it wasn't until I started to get treated in an inclusive way that I realised how bad it could be. When I look at how inclusive society is, when I was before I say this, I know that my particular diversity issues are nothing. It would be a lot more problems if I'd added more. If I fell under more categories, I suppose you'd call it. But going from being a young white male in society where everybody listens to your opinion, you can get everywhere, nothing's restricted to you, to suddenly being a quadriplegic and not being able to independently get into my local pub, not being able to independently get into restaurants, not being able to independently attend certain events, was very jarring, very jarring. So, after a while, you just get fed up of it. You get fed up of having to constantly ask for help. You get fed up with putting up with people's attitudes towards you. And personally, it's gotten to the point to me where I would prefer to do without a goods or services, specific ones. Well, actually, I prefer to go without any goods and services if it means that I don't have to put up with being discriminated against, if it means that I don't have to put up with being treated unfairly. These are the truths, because I am a human, I'm a member of society, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a house owner, I'm a business owner. All of these things. I contribute as much to society as anybody else, regardless of whether I have wheels attached to my butt, regardless of whether I can get up and down stairs. So, yes, they are that obvious to people with impairment. Sometimes it's more of a breaking glass moment where suddenly people go, I don't actually have to put up with this. So yes, it is very obvious, which is why it becomes so important for businesses when you start to look at this market and go, how can we better serve these people? Suddenly, places that serve me better, I am a constant repeat customer. Same with a lot of my friends that I have made since I started on this particular part of my journey. If there is a place that is inclusive, that makes you feel welcome, that is able to serve you with a minimum of fuss, whether that be physical or psychological, I will go back there all the time. So yes, very important. Thank you very much for that question. I hope that's made sense and I didn't ramble on too much. It was, as I said, a very insightful question that made it quite interesting to answer. And that is the questions that we have today. So with that, we're going to wrap up. So once again, anything that has been mentioned today, or has been referenced today, is available in our digital resource library at 30footdrop.com.au. And also there you'll find, if you go to the live page, a post-webinar survey that I would really love you guys to fill out. They really help us improve, and they'll take you about 30 seconds. So if you go there will be a webinar part 3 survey. Please fill it out. And if you've enjoyed today, please jump onto social media. Okay, follow us on social media, 30 Foot Drop. Give us a review, a rating. All of these things help, and be an active member of the community. I love it. I mean, we're getting such a great bunch of people in this community. It's really, really encouraging, and it's only going to get stronger. And don't forget as well that if you know somebody that you think could really benefit from this, please spread the word. Let everybody else know. Get the word around. But apart from that, and with that, once again, thank you very much for watching. Look after yourselves, look after each other, and catch you at the next webinar.